All right, everybody. Welcome to the October 16th meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Advisory Commission. Please rise and follow me in the Pledge of the Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, thank you all for coming after some hiatus. We kind of have a full docket in the respect of information today. I don't think I have to ask everybody to turn their phones off, but please do so if you haven't silenced them. And Mrs. Marcelino, please call the roll.
Commissioner Email,
Here.
Commissioner Reader,
Here.
Vice Chair Lemo,
Here.
Chair Gregory,
Here.
Commissioner Simpson is absent. Thank you.
All right, and we have mostly staff here today. We don't have any public comment, so no point in reading that. We'll just skip right on over. Let me catch up on our agenda. Summary notes from June 19th meeting. Are there any comments regarding the summary notes? If not, then no vote required to approve those, so mark them approved. We have a number of, item 6, we have a number of engineering reports. So why don't we just start with 6A, Rancho Road Sidewalks and Bike Lanes Project, which is also a action item. And okay, Jorge Munoz is going to enlighten us. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you to the Commission for the opportunity to provide an update on this capital project. My name is Jorge Munoz. I'm an engineering associate with the Public Works Department and the Capital Projects Division. I will be providing an update on this Rancho Road Sidewalks and Bike Lanes project today. The Commission may recall the July 2017 meeting where we brought the project as a preliminary design. But I'll go ahead and maybe give a brief overview of the project before giving an update where we're at. So the city has an ongoing program to construct missing sidewalks throughout the community, and Public Works maintains a priority list that ranks the missing sidewalk locations throughout the city based on several factors, including pedestrian traffic volumes, proximity to pedestrian trip generators, and road classifications. And so the incomplete section of sidewalk on Rancho Road, as illustrated in this overview map here of the existing conditions, is one of those priority locations, as this area provides pedestrian and bicyclist connections to both sides of the 101 freeway and is a direct path to the city's transportation center. And as illustrated here, currently at the northbound on-ramp intersection, there is no sidewalk or ADA compliant curb ramps for pedestrians to use, nor are there any dedicated bicycle facilities. Similarly, on the Southbound Ramps intersections with Rancho Road, there's also a missing sidewalk and non-ADA compliant curb ramps, nor are there any bicycle facilities. And another thing to note is the southbound on and off ramp intersection is currently an always stop controlled intersection, which leads to traffic congestion during peak hours. So the goal of the project and the objectives are to improve safety and connectivity for pedestrians and bicyclists, reduce weaving and merging conflicts between cars and bicycles, maintain the city's existing operational intersection level of service, satisfy Caltrans design standards, and install improvements that are consistent with the Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan. So here's an overall overview of the proposed improvements for Rancho Road. Just to highlight some of the features, to address pedestrian safety, the project will construct continuous ADA compliant sidewalks on both sides of Rancho Road, including providing new sidewalk that will connect to future pedestrian walkways at the transportation center. To address bicyclist concerns, The project will add bike lane striping along both directions of Rancho Road and will also include separate bicycle crossings, which are commonly referred to as Class 4 bike lanes, at both the northbound on-ramp intersection and at the southbound ramp intersections. One thing to note is that the Rancho Road project will be the first project in the city that is installing this type of Class 4 bike lane crossing. Furthermore, to prevent worsening of peak period congestion for motorists and improve the overall corridor efficiency, the project will also add a new traffic signal at Rancho Road and it's at the southbound 101 ramps, and will also modify the traffic signals at the northbound ramps to improve the efficiency of that intersection. So here's the more detailed view of the operations at Rancho Road and at the US 101 ramps. So it's illustrated in this close-up of the intersection. The travel lane configuration will be more or less maintained for the southbound Rancho Road. The through and the dual right onto the freeway will remain unchanged. However, to avoid conflicts with pedestrians and bicyclists attempting to cross the intersection, the operation of the traffic signal will be enhanced to provide dedicated signal displays that are activated when a pedestrian or a bicyclist pushes their push button to activate the signals. And then to help eliminate the potential right hook, a conflict between a car wanting to merge onto the freeway and a pedestrian or cyclist trying to cross the intersection, the southbound Rancho Road traffic signals will have a standard red light, but we're also going to be adding a no right turn on red display that gets illuminated and will help reduce that potential right turn when a pedestrian or bicyclist is crossing the intersection and avoid that right hook movement or right hook conflict. Motorists on the northbound side of Rancho Road will see no lane or operational changes. However, motorists exiting the freeway using the northbound off-ramps will no longer have a through movement and also will no longer have a non-restrictive right turn. Motorists instead will now see a shared left and right turn lane and one right turn only lane. These operational changes were necessary to allow the safe crossing of northbound pedestrians and bicyclists, and also help maintain the intersection's level of service, and also mitigate the concern of automobiles stacking on the off-ramp during peak hours. So moving on to the southbound ramps, here's a close-up view of Rancho Road and southbound US 101. So the biggest change to the intersection is replacing the all-way stop-controlled intersection and changing it to a traffic signal-controlled intersection. The travel lane configurations will remain unchanged. However, to serve the crossings of the pedestrians and bicyclists, the traffic signal will include the dedicated signals for the Class 4 bicycle and pedestrian crossing. So similarly to the northbound ramps operations, this will require the southbound automobile movements on Rancho Road to be restricted when a pedestrian or bicyclist is attempting to cross the intersection. So due to the project's great potential of improving safety for pedestrians and bicyclists, and among many other factors, the city has successfully secured state grant funding to supplement the total estimated project cost of $2.2 million. The project's final design is currently complete and is under review with Caltrans. Staff anticipates having the project approval before the end of this year, and the project construction is targeted for next summer with construction duration estimated at about 1 year. And the city staff has performed various outreach efforts and has incorporated as much public input and comment into the project as feasible, as well as received input from Caltrans oversight, making up many of the project operational, pedestrian, and bicyclist safety elements that I've discussed today. In addition, the design and the specifications of the project will incorporate elements such as construction phasing and potential night work to minimize impacts to the public during construction. In the future, staff will continue its outreach program to keep the public informed of construction activities via hard mail notifications, as well as provide updates via the city's website. With that, the staff recommendations are provided in the staff report, and that concludes our presentation of the Rancho Road Sidewalks and Bike Lanes project, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
All right, commissioners, questions? All right, Commissioner Lemo.
Thank you. My questions both center around the northbound entrance to the 101 coming off of Rancho, which is already a light, but it allows right turn on red, and also the southbound that has a through right-hand turn for a stop sign, or actually, I think bypasses the stop sign. Anyway, my question is, you said that those are going to be that one's going to be signalized that isn't now, and the other is they're both going to have a no right turn on red. And then you said when a pedestrian is present, is it going to be a permanent restriction of no right turn on red, or is it some kind of new mechanism that when the button is pressed, the signal says no right turn on red?
So if there's thank you, Commissioner, for the question. If there's no pedestrian present, the signal would actually operate exactly how it does now, which would mean it's a yielding stop control. So the driver approaches the red light, stops, pauses, and then makes the right turn onto the freeway. And so that's on the northbound. Northbound on ramps, southbound Rancho Road. On the southbound ramp intersection, there's going to be a green arrow that's always displayed, and it turns and it goes red only when a pedestrian is present and pushes the button.
So let's go back to the northbound entrance ramp. I apologize for being so slow. When I'm there and there's no pedestrian, I will have exactly the same situation I have now.
That is correct.
If there's a pedestrian, something is going to show me that there's no right turn on red.
That is correct. There's going to be an illuminated arrow that turns on and says, and it has an arrow with a circle with a line across it. It's called a blank out sign, restricting the right turn.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Reeder.
Thank you. Excuse me. I'm familiar with the dedicated pedestrian signals, but could you describe more what a dedicated bicycle signal might be?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. The dedicated bicycle signal essentially has the same 3-color tree, if you will, but it has a kind of an outline of a bicycle. So it'll show red when the cyclist cannot cross, and it'll show green when the cyclist can cross.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? I will say I've seen those no right on turn signals. Down in Oceanside, they're used in Carlsbad quite a bit, and they work. They're very efficient, and it's hard to miss when they're on. Okay. So I like this design. Any other questions about this?
I just have one comment,
All right, Commissioner.
if I can. More of an anecdotal comment. When I was in high school, I used to have to walk to the bus route before the TO Transportation Center even existed. It was beyond the on-ramps and the off-ramps for the 101, and that was really treacherous. I mean, there was no sidewalk, and you're looking over your shoulder all the time looking for cars that may or may not see you. May see you and want to hit you anyway because you're a high school kid, but may not want to hit you because they don't want to take your life. But I think this looks fantastic. I think this is long overdue, so certainly am happy to see it. Looks good to me.
All right. Then I think if there's no more questions, whatever this is an action item, we're basically making a motion per recommendation. Item 2 here, recommend City Council approves the proposed stripe and signal improvements.
So moved.
All right. There you go. Second, do we need a show of hands on this, or?
Yeah, we can do a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise
All
your
right,
hand.
There you go.
Motion carries 4-0. The Traffic Commission makes recommendations to the City Council, and interested parties may attend the City Council meeting and speak either for or against the recommendation of the Traffic Commission. Any person wishing to appeal a decision of the Traffic Commission shall file a written appeal and pay an appeal fee with the City Clerk's Department within 14 calendar days of this decision. The matter will be referred to the City Council at the earliest reasonable and available date. The appeal fee will be refunded only if the City Council overturns the Traffic Commission's decision. An appeal form is available from the Recording Secretary.
Thank you, Ms. Marcelino. Just moving on to staff report 6B, which is a draft of the active transportation plan, ATP, and let's see, Kathy, you're giving that, okay.
Thank you, Chair Gregory. This item before you is a review of the draft active transportation plan. I will refer to the draft active transportation plan as the ATP. The city received a grant in the amount of $100,000 from the Southern California Association of Governments to prepare an active transportation plan. Active transportation refers to any form of human-powered transportation, such as walking, jogging, running, cycling, or skateboarding. The ATP is a long-range plan that will make the city of Thousand Oaks a better place to walk and bike. The purpose of preparing the plan is to develop an active transportation-friendly environment. It's to identify a network for walkways and bikeways to connect neighborhoods to activity centers. It's to provide a roadmap for education and promotion of active transportation. And most important, the ATP is required when applying for grants, so we actually really need one. The ATP is a data-driven plan. It's a plan that uses existing data and community input to develop recommendations. The first step in preparing the ATP was to prepare a model which includes all bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Next was to identify land uses such as residential, commercial, industrial, and activity centers, large employment hubs, retail and government centers, parks, and other attractions. Other inputs included average daily trips, speeds, volumes, collision data, freeway barriers, and transit routes. Concurrently, as the base model was being developed, a public outreach program was conducted. The annual Love Run was selected as the venue to conduct a public workshop because it attracts thousands of participants and supporters who are both walkers, runners, and cyclists. Besides verbal input, the team gathered comments on a large table and on displays. A survey was prepared in English and Spanish to determine the satisfaction levels with existing pedestrian bicycle infrastructure. Printed and online surveys were available at local civic spaces, such as the Thousand Oaks Library and City Hall, also through online platforms. The city and the bicycle advisory team worked together to distribute surveys using the city's website and stakeholder email list. There was an online comment map which respondents could use to highlight location-specific issues. It allowed respondents to provide input without existing issues and to show exactly where they were on the map. The survey and resulting map data closely reflected the city's population. It was very useful in understanding existing pedestrian bicycle issues, which helps guide project prioritization. When respondents were asked where they would like to see better pedestrian bicycling routes, the results were relatively evenly split between the destination choices offered, with the highest two being parks and shopping centers, followed by schools, community centers, and transit stops. This is the list of the major topics and issues. Although we frequently heard that the city has a good system for walking and cycling, when asked what would encourage more active transportation, we consistently heard that closing the gaps and making it easier to cross over under the freeways would greatly help. The data was used to develop the model. The two maps were produced, which are included in your packet, which show the highest propensity for both walking and biking. The red on the map shows where people would cycle the most in the city. Both pedestrian and bicycle propensity maps show highest likelihood to use along and between Thousand Oaks Boulevard and Hillcrest Drive, Westlake Boulevard, south of the 101, the area around Moore Park Road, north of Jans Road, and the Reno Road corridor. The bicycle propensity is mostly concentrated on the major roadways. Pedestrian propensity also permeates into local streets that people tend to use more frequently. The next step was to develop a list of projects based on the model and then prioritize the projects. Remember, this is a data-driven plan to prioritize the projects, and it's based on various inputs used as shown on this slide. The list of bicycle and pedestrian projects are included in the report. Generally, the bicycle recommendations mainly focus on closing the gaps to complete the bicycle network. About 12 miles of Class 2 bike lanes are proposed. Thousand Oaks Boulevard scored the highest due to the high density of collisions and destinations. It's unlikely that the project will be connected first because striping of lanes on Thousand Oaks Boulevard will need support from the community, and it involves reducing the number of travel lanes and or the potential for removing of parking. The city has a good sidewalk system with relatively few streets lacking them. The pedestrian recommendations also aim for maximizing connectivity and accessibility. For example, this figure, which is included in the study, shows a map of the downtown area and the missing sidewalk projects. The final chapter of the plan is implementation, and it focuses on grants available for active transportation projects. Depending on the requirements of the grant, some projects are a better fit than the others. For example, if the grant is available to correct a safety problem, only those projects that have a documented safety problem would be a good fit for that grant. So that the recommendation is to approve incorporating comments into today's study and report, and we'll recommend to City Council. And I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Questions from any commissioners? This was a lot to digest, I will say. You did a wonderful job. There's so much information in here. And I must say, I noted on day one that you start, by the time you reach to the end, your data is already kind of dated, and there's no way you can keep up on it. So it's a never-ending cycle there, especially with some other things. I had a question because I was looking at some of the stats, and I found some of the information here was unbelievable, especially, and if you want a page reference number, page 32, where it said in a 5-year period, we had 157 bicycle-related collisions and 117 pedestrian-related collisions. Now, the interesting thing I found in this report is we've already done bicycle safety programs, because it also includes an analysis of who is getting into the bicycles and why, you know, which is great. That's why you use statistics, so you can do an education program and correct that. I just had a question because we actually do have 6 fatalities, which, you know, I mean, obviously no one's ever happy to see that, but are there statistics that kind of show in a community like ours? Is that, I mean, there's always going to be something of that nature, but is there an average in a community with, I believe this says we have around 125,000 people. I mean, are we, you know, where are we on the scale if you have a stat for that?
I look at the statistics very carefully, and I'm very cognizant of what we can do to correct any fatality related to cycling or pedestrians. The big picture is how do we compare to other cities? Where do we fit in? We're not a high fatality rate city for bicycling or pedestrians. It is clustered where we have most of the traffic in the city, which is on Tier Boulevard. I'd say the fatalities we've seen, they're not traffic engineering related, correctable at this time, that we didn't see. I should say that's not to say that if you put a Class 4 bike lane on Thousand Oaks Boulevard completely separated from traffic and driveways, that you wouldn't have less accidents or collisions. But at this point, nothing's really, we haven't found anything to correct them. But no, we're not a high accident area. City.
And I didn't think we were, and I just wanted you to confirm that, because I know we try to do a lot with the tools that we have to make it as safe as possible. And as some people have showed up here before, I said, when nobody comes to complain, we know we're doing our job. You know, which this report, if they read it, they would know that the city staff is on the ball and looking after everybody's welfare and all. Just one other, and I'm going to pass it on to others. You know, I was happy to see, you know, of some of the traffic calming. I don't know, I have this thing about traffic circles, mostly because it confuses people, but it's because it doesn't involve a stop sign, and it does calm traffic. And I am seeing in many cities around them using these more often. Obviously, they're hard to put in certain areas, but it does force cars to slow down, especially in high traffic. And if T.O. Boulevard ever goes more mixed use, I mean, literally that street is wide enough to almost do diagonal parking, cut the lane down, put a traffic circle in, because what it does is it just forces cars to start slowing down and drive more like 5-10 miles an hour in that area without having to stop cars. And so it'll be interesting to see in the future, you know, if any of that gets incorporated. Other than that, thank you. Gosh, I mean, this just was fantastic so far as all the information. If I did all the little dog ear things that I put, we'd be here for hours, so I'm going to stop. But thank you.
Well, and if I just, the beginning of my presentation, this was a $100,000 grant from Southern California Association of Governments. So that's what this study is. It's a $100,000 study that a consultant did with a lot of staff support. There was no matching funds, which was really good. The city didn't have to put out any money for it. But that's why this study is so good and so amazing. It's a very
Kathy,
good
you're
study.
good at getting money for us. You have a track
Thank you.
record. But thank you for that, too. Any other commissioners?
Kathy, I was curious. Did you notice any difference between people who bicycle as being a commuter as opposed to having a recreational activity with their bicycle?
You mean what they're looking for improvements?
Mostly as on behavior. I know recreational bicyclists usually travel in groups, where a commuter bicyclist might be a single bicycle. So, did you notice any difference in behavior as it relates to accidents?
No, we because that doesn't come up in the accident reports. It doesn't say where they're going, why they were going. What does show consistently is the population that's in most of the accidents are males between 40 and 60, and that's also who the population that cycles the most in the community. So whether they're commuting or recreational cyclists, it's shows that that's who's out there the most right now in the collisions.
Building on that, then would the city be wise to ask the recreational bicyclists where they would like to ride, where there's less traffic?
I spend a lot of time talking to recreation cyclists because as part of the bicycle advisory team, they have representatives from the Old Cranks, Amgen Bicycling Club, the Canary Valley Cyclists, and so I have a lot of input for them. And what's interesting, depending on who the cyclist is and what group they are, it all changes where they ride, and they ride which day of the week. So, you know, a lot of them save their long rides for the weekends, and they go out of the city where there's less traffic out in the county area. But I don't think we can ever suggest where they're going to ride, but they ride all over the streets.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
No other questions? All right. Well, this is an action item. So I take it from this point, this is the final draft that we're going to be recommending that goes to the city council?
Yes, unless you have any changes to it, we'll take this draft plan and any of your recommendations to city council.
Well, changes are never ending, but yeah, I think 2016 was the last census that was in here, so we'll have to wait till the 2020 I guess, to update everything, but it is what it is. I found it very accurate. It shows the trends. It really highlights the areas. We have an active plan, and anybody that has a problem can come here and talk to us directly. So.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, that
Sure.
It checks off all the boxes that need to be an active transportation plan to apply for grants. So this is a very, like every chapter is required as part of the ATP process. So that's why it's designed this way too.
Well, we love matching funds or whatever. We have a nice, safe community. So unless there are any other questions, then would somebody like to make a motion to? All right,
I'd like to make a
Commissioner Reader.
motion that the Traffic Commission approve the proposed, I'm on the wrong thing, what do we call this?
Active transportation.
Active
plan.
Transportation Plan to the City Council. Thanks for your help.
I support that. Do a hands.
We may do a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
All right.
Motion carries 4-0. And for the record, I just want to state that there were no speaker nor written statement cards received for both the ATP and the Rancho Road Sidewalk and Bike Lanes Project engineers' reports. Thank you.
All right. And we want to thank Kathy and Mr. Munoz. I forgot to thank you earlier for your report. It was excellent also. And then 6C is our standard bicycle activity update report. Oh, you actually have, okay, that's not our standard bad
No.
report. Oh, okay, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Well, it's a bicycle activity update, more robust than normal, and it's just an update and it's an information. So if you have any questions or comments, I'd be happy to take them. But it was just gives you a little more information than what you get each meeting.
I notice a lot of people participate in that, so now you guys are very much, and you get a lot of feedback from the community and whatnot. So I don't have any questions, just a lot of information, all good. Then moving on, let's see here, trying to find mine. 7, we're on 7, okay. Status report, prior commission recommendations. And I think there was information in here that I read about 2. I think 1 was my referral, and nothing was viewed to be out of sync there. And
And 1 was my referral, and
Okay.
that was corrected after observed by our staff as well. So that's under line B at Via Ricardo and Borchard. And they modified the timing, and thank you very much for addressing that.
right. And let's see, referrals. I'm trying to figure. Oh, there was only one thing. I did have a question, and I think basically it was part of the BAT report, and that is that we put in that sidewalks of Moore Park Road, bike lanes and sidewalk up at Olson Road and the YMCA Drive. And I've observed that, and they did a beautiful job, and it looks great. I was wondering if we've gotten any feedback from that from public or users, or I think it was only completed back in January, but have we gotten any feedback on that, or basically our normal no complaints, we did a good job?
Of interest, a cycling group from Norway came into town, and they specifically went there to take a picture as a photo op with the sign and used bucket, and we're just amazed at how beautiful our streets are. So very positive feedback from them.
Good. They did a great job. Yeah. That was another one of those projects. Good to see finally finished and moving forward. Our community is safer. Okay, so 8, commission referrals. Let's see. That was what we just covered, I would assume. And then we off to 9, work program and commission schedule. I noticed a bunch of stuff coming up on your list. I'm trying to do 2 packets, the one you gave me and the one that I made my notes on here. If I didn't skip ahead.
Future agenda item?
Yeah. Oh, future. Yeah. Did I skip ahead, or I think we're right on.
I think you're right.
I didn't see anything on here that says we're going to have another meeting. So maybe you can enlighten us if there's any of these listed future agenda items. There were a couple that say fall 2019, but the action items stretch into like a whole year.
Yes, we're gonna on this list, the one that's at the top, the 2020 pavement overlay and resurfacing project. I think we're planning to bring that to the commission next month. That's the one we're every 2 years we have our overlay or resurfacing program, and then if there's an opportunity to change some of the striping, modify them, maybe especially to enhance bike lanes and either widen the bike lane or also incorporate traffic calming features such as narrowing a travel lane. We're going to bring all our recommendations to you next month on that.
Okay, that'd be perfect. That's the week before Thanksgiving. Everybody check their calendar. I don't see any conflict, so I'm happy to see one more meeting because we always go dark in December, and we'll get some more work done, definitely. Then in that case, are there any current referrals anybody has? No referrals? No? Okay. Any comments then? Okay, we have a comment.
I have one, being that everybody has their water and it's a public meeting. I'd like to congratulate Cliff Finley, who will be, I don't know the exact date. I don't know if it's been decided yet, but he is going to become our Public Works Director. And I have been able to, along with most folks on the commission, see how well-deserved that is. He's got big shoes to fill, but he'll do a great job. So congratulations.
Would those be concrete boots? No. No. Here. Well deserved. All right. Then I guess basically we're going to adjourn. And the Traffic and Transportation Advisory Commission is now adjourned until 6 p.m. on November 20th in the boardroom of the Civic Arts Plaza, 3rd floor. Good night. Thanks, everybody. That was a lot of good work.